I welcome everyone to the meeting room this morning for this lecture, very important lecture series organized by the for Center for Public Service Productivity and Development. And I want to tell us that there is no better time for this powerful center to have picked this kind of topic for us to address on the theme of productivity for prosperity. We do all know what is happening around the world, especially Nigeria of now. I will not waste much time because we are going to be able to sit on this topic and ideate from several dimensions. And I do believe that at the end of this session, we will have something very cogent and very important that will help us to address and manage the impact, the negative impact of inflation in our respective organization and individual lives. I will not forget to use this opportunity to commend the center and recognize their powerful strides in trying to improve productivity across spheres in Nigeria and other parts of the world. I want to recognize the leadership of the center led by the president, Professor Sandeep Gupta, and the director general, Dr. Chris Emu, who is right here with us and coincidentally is our guest speaker this morning. I want to say that you people are doing great. I am glad that I became part of this movement. I became this part of a professional giant. And I want to say that whoever that is in this meeting room this morning, if you have anybody that is a potential member of this professional body, you should bring such a person in. And the person will really, really be grateful to you because we have a lot to offer at the Center for Public Service Productivity and Development. Because we are productivity professional, we are going to manage our time very judiciously. A minute will not be wasted on whatever we are going to do this morning. And that opens me up to the topic of today. The topic of today is how we can hedge ourselves against or from inflation. I did mention that this is the best time for this center to have been able to pick this topic under the theme of productivity for prosperity. The reason being that in our own country today, we understand that the value of our currency, the value of our naira has become something that could be referred to as having fallen into the deepest and the lowest valley. And why are we talking about inflation? Even at this very critical time, it is usually a very problematic economic challenge that poses difficulties to individuals and organizations. But even at a time where a lot of people are still trying to struggle and thrive because of the entrance and the emergence of the pandemic a couple of years ago, having this situation now calls for attention of all that matters in the economy, and that is why we are gathered here this morning. Inflation, as we all understand, is the progressive increase in prices of goods and services and a corresponding debasing or reduction in the value of the purchasing power of money. And when we say purchasing power of money, it doesn't end there, because money as an entity, money as a mode of payment, money as an asset is not just there on its own. Money do not exist and is valueless if it is not being controlled, if it is not being handled by organizations, by persons, me and you. So when we say a corresponding debase of the value of purchasing power of money, we are also saying a debase or reduction in the value of purchasing power of all of us, because the point is that money is there, but we are the ones that are making use of this money. We are the ones that are making decisions with this money. We are the ones that are using this money to transact businesses, to run our investments, to purchase goods that we need for consumption. So it cannot be underscored. It cannot, we cannot say that this topic is not something that every individual in the business world or in corporate world or even in government should have a kind of it's not a topic that we should treat with levity. And I find this topic very interesting, and I do believe that quite a number of us, especially those that own businesses, understands the reason why Center for Public Service Productivity and Development have chosen this topic. I once again welcome all of us, and in case some of us do not really understand with this precise definition why we are paying so much attention to this inflation, I would like to highlight few items that will make you to click your mind to the relevance of this topic in this current time. And I say this, inflation is a sign of macroeconomic imbalance. At the economic level, we may think that this macroeconomic imbalance does not, it doesn't concern us, it doesn't impact us, but that is not true. It is a macroeconomic imbalance that we will find to be impacting how we live our lives. It impacts the standard of our living. It impacts our potential. It affects our ability to lead decent, considerably decent individual lives. So it is also an indication of unsustainable public finances. I mean, when we have public finances, money is injected into the system. There is a good circulation of money in the system, but it is unsustainable. When we have inflation, when we experience inflation, when we see inflation, we will know that it's an indicator of unsustainable public finances. It is also a consequence of transferring of real resources from the public to the central bank or the government. What does it mean to transfer real resources from the public to the central bank or government? Government usually use this as a measure to finance public deficits. When they experience or when they meet public deficits, certain governments who do not want to go through the rigors of other options will quickly begin to transfer resources to central bank. It is not always sustainable, and that is why it creates a volatility in the company. It creates these changes in the prices of consumer goods and services, and of course, every one of us will begin to have a hit. And it reduces also economic growth and the future growth potentials of economies. It reduces economic growth. And do we know why? Because when your money becomes very, very minute in terms of the value, when it has reduced considerably on its value, it becomes difficult for you to implement goals and strategies that will bring about realization of sustainable development goals. It doesn't matter if it is at the governmental level, or if it is at the organizational level, or if it is at the individual level. So the point is, inflation is not an item. It is not a subject that the countries will see and try to sit comfortably on it. Countries need to rise when they experience inflation. Countries who have keen interest in development, they need to rise and see what they can do to stabilize. Let us also remember that it is not just inflation that is our major problem. Even when there is a deflation, it is also not important. What we are seeking for, with the help of this conversation this morning, this lecture series, is for us to have stability. We have to have balance. There is an acceptable rate at which prices of goods and services should be allowed to run in every given economy. When it is too high or too low, it is not good for us. And for us that is in developing nations, it should be a concern to us, because whatever that will impair our capacity as a nation to develop should be of a concern to every professional, especially professionals of the Center of Public Service Productivity and Development. So once again, I welcome all of you, and I want us to open our hearts, our minds of learning, and receive whatever that is being presented to us, and not just receiving. We would like at a point in time to have opinions of those that have joined us in this lecture series. We want to say opinions because we do believe that whatever that is going to be presented is not final. When we are talking about knowledge, we are talking about a pool from diverse background, a pool from diverse experience streams. So it is not just about what our guest speaker is going to present to us. While his presentation is going on, I would like us to be very attentive to it, interact with the presentation and be able to come up with our own views, our own ideologies, our own perception of what inflation is, how it is impacting our individual life and organizational life, and what we should be doing to make sure that it does not crumble us, but rather that we'll pass through it and be able to overcome its negative impacts. So please, I would like those in the house to kindly permit me to say something about the profile of Dr. Chris Ebu, the Director General of Center for Public Service Productivity and Development. He's a man of many caps, and I can say I am not just going to read all. I had to kind of extract from what I got from the center, because it's it's a profile that will take us more than 30 minutes if we have to read all of them. I want to say that the Director General of the Center, Dr. Chris Ebu, is an accomplished professional, and please permit me to read his profile now. Dr. Chris Ebu is a peak productivity coach, is an author, public speaker, and productivity auditor. He's the Director General, Center for Public Service Productivity and Development. Chris has addressed thousands of men and women around the world, including executives, on the subject of productivity, management, performance, excellence, entrepreneurial development, and leadership. Dr. Ebu is a certified productivity professional and a certified management consultant who has helped hundreds of people create successful enterprises. He will guide you through operating a business plan and putting it into action to build a productive, profitable, and sustainable endeavor. With Dr. Ebu, with an impressive track record over many years, Dr. Ebu has succeeded in keeping businesses out of collapse, guiding them into productivity, profitability, and building their network into positive territory. What thing is settled with Dr. Ebu? His audiences arrive with a myriad of burning questions and always leave with valuable information targeted specifically to their individual business needs. Dr. Chris Ebu is a gallant fellow of many professional organizations and bodies around the world. He's a fellow of Center for Productivity. He's a fellow of the Institute for Self-Accountability of Nigeria. Dr. Chris Ebu is a fellow of the Institute of Management of Nigeria. He's a fellow of the Institute of Governance and Management of Nigeria. He's a fellow of the Institute of an experienced writer, a successful author, new ways of body, and an entrepreneur. What are some examples?
Yes. Okay. I cannot hear Mrs. Mayberg, and I hope she has done justice to the introduction. When we talk about inflation, you can see she's very passionate about it. So members of the governing body and fellows of the Institute, you are welcome to this lecture series. So I hope you are here, you are seeing the screen. Nelson, is the screen being seen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The screen is okay.
Okay. So this is Mr. Dewumi, member of the governing body of Center of Institute of Bankers, Chartered Institute of Bankers, being inducted. This is my profile. Now we are going to look at 10 smartest way to hedge yourself during inflation. And I believe by the time I finish some of these areas, we will open the floor. And if you have also contribution you can make. Like Ms. Omeibe has mentioned, we are looking at inflation, how to hedge inflation from the microeconomic level. That is what an individual or firm can do to hedge inflation. We are not looking at it from what government can do or what CBN can do, which is the macro level. Because at the end of the day, the buck stops at your table. So what can you do is the area we are looking at. She has defined inflation in the introduction, so we are not going to waste time in definition of inflation. All of us understand it. But to see the impact of inflation, Nigerian consumer price inflation rate in January 2022 stood at 15.6%. In 2021 December, it was 15.63. This is according to Nigerian Bureau of Statistics index. But then Nigerian Bureau of Statistics also mentioned that food index rose to 17.13% in January 2022. But in January 2021, the inflation on food index rose to 20.57. What this means is that assuming you have 1 million and you put it in treasury bill, the Nigerian treasury bill gives income of, for 182 days, 2.9%, for 137 days, 2.5%. Now, if you have 1 million and you invest it in treasury bill, then inflation is 15.6. That means that you are losing 13.10% on your investment. And that means that if you don't take time, within a space of, say, 5 to 10 years, your whole income will be eroded. So that is why inflation is a serious matter. Now, when we are talking about hedging inflation, we are referring to investment that protects investors from declining purchasing power of money due to inflation. The investment are expected to maintain or increase in value during inflationary cycle. So your investment is supposed to be going higher to match the inflation or remain the same. Investors engage in inflation hedging with the goal of protecting the value of their investment and keeping operating costs on lower end. And because many people want to match inflation with their income, a lot of people have fallen into Ponzi scheme. Especially last year, a lot of those Ponzi schemes who tells you that you can get 30% if you invest money to 60% to 80%, 90% of them collapsed last year. And all is in an attempt to hedge inflation. But we are saying you can beat inflation. How? How can you beat inflation? Number one, don't keep your money idle. If you keep your money in the bank for a very long time, inflation will erode the value. So you only accumulate money, let's say in a cooperative society or in a savings account, on fixed deposit account, maybe for 90 to 180 days, and then send it on an errand. Money in the bank during double-digit inflation, such like we are witnessing in Nigeria, is hard hit by inflation. If you must have money in the bank, fix it in an inflationary protected security. If you can't find that, do a 90 or 180 called fixed deposit or mutual fund. Mutual fund is about 4.5% thereabout, and fixed deposit is within that 2 to 3%. It still does not equate with inflationary trend, but one thing is that at least it will not allow banks to be debiting and charging a lot of money until you find the right investment to put into. This way, the interest helps to reduce the impact of inflation on your money while you shop around for better deals. 2, you can speculate on food storage. Yes, foodstuff is one of the higher areas of that inflation hits. A bag of rice will never be sold again for 10,000. Your landlord will never reduce your rent ever again. This tells you how expensive the future is getting. So instead of complaining, get into the flow. I know one of our members, a fellow and a banker, he tells me that during the season of rice, he stores rice, the paddy rice. And during the off season, he sells. And as much as he's able to stock, he's able to sell. Therefore, if you can add to food storage, store during the season, like beans will be around December, January, then you'll be making a lot of money that will beat inflation. Yes, you see, the prices of food will always go up. It doesn't come down most often. The third one is you can buy land. Rent and the price of land will never come down. Please, if you are raising hand, you can lower your hand. It's at the end of the lecture. We will allow people to ask some questions. Now, my friend recently, a land he bought about 250,000 in Lagos here, about 8-9 years back. He sold it about 2 months ago, 9.5 million. And he was able to buy 3 plots of land in Enugu and another plot of land in Lagos and a car. So that shows you that you can also use land to hedge on inflation. You see the point. So that is what inflation can do. And by the way, we have some solid and valuable real estate in most towns and communities that you can easily buy. 4, you can save in dollar or pounds. I know a lot of people who save their money in dollar, so you can have a domiciliary account. There was a time I was having even dollars that I bought 160, 180 naira per dollar in my domiciliary account. So that will hedge you against high rate of inflation. And that is why you see most people buy dollars and save it and later invest it in other assets. For information, our members will receive free slides and a recorded video, while non-members will receive free training video only. And to get this, you can send a chat requesting for the free material. You type your full name, your email, your phone number, so that it will be sent to you. And if you want a certificate on this course to show that you attended, it's optional. You can also request for e-certificate, which will cost 5,000 naira. You can put it in the information box. The admin will contact you on how you get that. Thank you. The 5th area you can hedge inflation is buying crypto. I wouldn't prescribe any crypto you should buy, but it should also be helpful in the long run, since not much of it is printed, unlike fiat money like Naira. CBN can decide to print more Naira that is not backed up by gold, but crypto is usually limited. So in the long run, their prices will usually go up, especially if it is the traditional cryptos like Bitcoin. The 6th area, cars can be used to hedge inflation. Yes. Cars too can be used to hedge money. The cars that sold for 2 million last year is probably 3 million now. That is about 50% appreciation if you are reselling. A friend of mine buys a car, he uses it well and sell it after 18 months. He still makes much money when he flips it. And you can imagine some cars you bought 3-4 years ago, if you go to price it now, you can still get more money than that you paid 2 years ago. The seventh area, you can borrow more and lend less. During inflationary period like we are witnessing now, borrow more, invest, and lend less during inflation, because borrowers win during hyperinflation because they return worthless money to an ignorant lender over time. Yes, the prices are really going up. For instance, about 6-7 years ago, when I fixed the aluminiums in my apartment, both up and down flats, took about 500,000 to do 7 years ago. And relatively, when I'm doing the same project now, I'm spending close to 3 million for aluminum windows on the same type of apartment. So that shows how if you borrow and invest, you can realize it with time. Then 8, you need to have multiple sources of income that can beat inflation. Now, single source of income is not an option because inflation will always overtake salary or wages. Reason, whereas collective agreement takes about 2 to 3 years to review reluctantly, but inflation does not wait 2 to 3 years. Therefore, before the collective agreement is reviewed, you may have lost 50% of your income. Therefore, you need other sources of income. And nowadays, with advent of flexible working, you can work multiple jobs without leaving your present one. Example, my daughter has a full-time job she maintains, she's paid, and she also has a part-time job she does online, and she earns from both sources. Therefore, someone who has multiple sources of income will always beat someone who has single source of income. 9, buy right. Buy right. We can reduce expenses on our feeding by buying in the right market, buying in bulk, and buying food in the season. What do I mean? There is, like I mentioned earlier, beans. If you buy beans in December, November, December, January, it's almost at the lowest. Maybe a bag of beans then, like this year, in that period, sells around 40, 45,000, the big bag of beans. But during the off season, you will get them around 80, 100,000. Therefore, even for feeding, if you buy in bulk at the right time, you'll be saving a lot of money. Also, in every location, either Abuja or Lagos, there are wholesale market for foodstuff. If you can go there and buy, like in Lagos, to my 12 for the perishable, and Oyinbo market for food ingredients, fish and all those things, you will be saving half of the money that you would have spent if you buy in the market that is not for that, meant for the foodstuff. So by so doing, you can also save a lot of money. 10, diversify internationally. Nigerian investors tend to lean towards stocks and bonds in Nigeria. Whenever you think about investing, many people think about buying stocks and bonds in Nigeria. But the practice can be costly over the long term, especially during times of inflation. Increasing international exposure can be a good strategy to hedge against inflation. There are several major economies in the world that do not rise and fall in tandem with Nigerian market indices, such as America, UK, Italy, Australia, South Korea, even Dubai. Dubai, for the past 15 years, I started going to Dubai. The exchange rate against dollar has remained between 360 and 365 dirham against the dollar. Therefore, their currency is highly stable. So what that means is that if you invest in their stocks or shares in such markets, the return you will get will be able to hedge against inflation. So you can see a pictorial graphic depiction of what inflation does. In 2000, this is the amount of money you have. If you keep it in the bank, in 2010, it will shrink to this. 2020, it will shrink. And in 2030, it is almost finished. So we have mentioned, for the purpose of those who just joined us, for the purpose of those who join us, that our members will receive free the slides and recorded video, while non-members will receive only the training video. That to get this, you send a chat requesting for your free material through the chat room, putting your full name, email, phone number. Optionally, also, if you need e-certificate to testify your attendance or participation in this training, you can get e-certificate at cost of 5,000 naira. You need to indicate also in the chat box so that the admin can contact you. Now, we have mentioned the 10 ways you can hedge against inflation. During the discussion, other panel members and other members here can also contribute to other ways it can be done. Now, the role of CeProd in your productivity. We always complain about lack of productivity in African economy, especially in the public sector. And this has led to a lot of decline because our inflation tends to be imported inflation because most things we use is imported. But despite that, a lot of budgetary allocation is made every year, 9 trillion. But at the end of the day, nothing to show. Even our manufacturing plants, the produce capacity is becoming uncompetitive due to what? Goods and services the prices are not, sustainable. I was discussing with someone 2 days ago. He said that when they made their budget for this year, diesel, they budgeted at 400 naira. And then diesel was around 350. But now diesel is between 650 and 700. So if you are manufacturing with such a high cost, you may not be able to be competitive with things that are manufactured in Ghana, where they don't need to worry about cost of diesel. So these have challenged governments in various areas to study, research, and to promote productivity culture. But this appears to defy any solution. Therefore, CeProd was registered in December 2008 with RC 3518 as a non-governmental, non-profit organization, a world-class productivity organization, to train people and make concerted effort on measures to reverse declining productivity. And what it means is that we have to train our members to understand what is productivity, how they can apply it in their personal life, and how they can improve their productivity. And we believe that if each person can increase his productivity annually by 30%, it will impact on the aggregate increase in the productivity of the country. But many have asked, what is the benefit of being a member? Yes, productivity principle, values, standards, and practices is not taught in any higher institution, but we have a curriculum we have developed, which all members passes through, no matter your level of education. So our members also understand that increasing their personal productivity will mean increasing their living standard and enhancing also national productivity. These are some of our members that were inducted in Sheraton Hotel, Lagos recently. So as our members' productivity improves, their real income improves, and their ability to purchase goods and services, enjoy leisure, enjoy improved housing and education, enjoy better social and environmental impact will increase. Increasing our members' productivity also help their businesses to be more profitable because their eye is on productivity. And if you check our website, you see more than 123 members. More so, our members can use the acronym ACP, MCP, and FCP for fellows, a recognition that they have competence and they have a training and competence in productivity. We also give a monthly newsletter, which is well-researched and informative on emerging issues on productivity. Therefore, membership provides a unique opportunity for self-development. You have frequent opportunities to exchange ideas, such as we have now. We did one last month, so that you can update and expand your knowledge on productivity. We also have productivity coaching, which is about 3-month coaching one-on-one virtually, where we deal with critical issues determining productivity growth on individual level. As I said earlier, in our website, you'll be listed also as a member. We have 133 now, and we have also others we have not listed on the website. It also gives you opportunity for international networking among members. This is the testimonial of some of our members, Professor Miriam Abudu, HOD, Business Admin, Kaduna Poly. He says, this course is very educative. Kaduna State University, I mean. He said, this course is very educative and will have a positive impact on productivity in the workplace. She passed through the program also. Another fellow, Kudrak Abdul Hamid, Auditor General, Federal Capital Territory Administration, Abuja. She said that it is a well-organized program, apt because of the situation of the time and moment, fitting into the realities of time, performing, productive, and profitable. So a lot of people have testified to what we are doing as credible. And how do we increase productivity awareness in the country? We send direct mail to more than 300,000 in our database, creating awareness about productivity. We also do free open webinars, such as we are doing now. We also have free productivity courses. We have skill acquisition for youth and members' word of mouth campaign and publications in the national and international newspaper on productivity. These are some of the productivity campaigns we have run in the newspaper. This is some newspaper of 2nd May. It says how Nigeria GDP can increase, Center for Public Service Productivity. Post-COVID era, firm offers personal finance course to help households. So there are a lot of linkages. This is our membership induction at Abuja. This is membership induction at Abuja. And this is membership program. You pass through 14 courses, which we will send, you go through and you attend an induction where they will be discussed about 14 courses. So for membership inquiries, you can always send information. So you will agree it has been a time well spent so far. We cannot cover everything you need to know about improving your productivity during inflation in an hour, even if we have all day. You can get more information on how we have grown other individuals and organizations through our website. So in conclusion, tying it all together, inflation hedging can help protect the value of your assets. Certain investments might seem to provide a decent return, but when inflation is factored in, they can be sold at a loss. Yes. For example, if you invest in a stock that gives 5% return, but inflation is 16%, you are losing 11%. That is what it means. Finally, a productivity professional will plan for inflation by cultivating asset classes that will outgrow inflation rates. CeProd is all about prosperity through productivity. We thank the 126 of you for listening. Is Ms. Omeibe still around, Basi?
Let me check, sir.
Yeah. Her network was unstable towards her end. Is she still around?
No, she's not.
Okay. Kelebe, can you take over?
I can hear you. I am here.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I had to change to another network. I formed Mr. Nelson previously.
Okay.
That was a very fantastic lecture. It's a very rich one, and I'm glad I am also benefiting from this lecture series. Quite a number of key items have been enlisted as to what we need to do to protect ourselves from the harsh impact of inflation. And I want to believe that while we were all listening, we were building up our own perspectives about this subject of inflation. We were also trying to relate with how it has affected our own individual capacity to lead normal lives. The key thing I want us to look at is this. When we do not apply the knowledge that we garner in classes like this, in platforms like this, what happens is that we fail to progress at the needed pace. We fail to progress at the needed pace. And when we are not progressing at the individual level, there is every tendency that the nation is not progressing. If the citizens of a country, if the members of an organization is stagnated, is stands still, is not experiencing growth, there is no way we can prove that there is growth, there is a prosperity in that organization or in that country. So what we are going to do now is, having listened to what Dr. Ebu has presented, I want us to take very few minutes, maybe 2 minutes, to think through all that has been presented and then give our questions. I want us to take questions before we could ask our fellows here and some special guests to make comments on the topic of discussion this morning. While I wait for people to come up with their questions, I had requested initially that people point out their questions, they drop their questions at the chat box. But if you would like to ask your question, I don't know how time can permit us, but we will allow a few minutes. If you want to ask your question in person, you can ask your question by raising your hand, and then you'll be unmuted and then called into the floor. But if you have put your question also at the chat box, we are going to pick it now, and then we are going to read it out for our guest speaker to respond to those questions. And after that, I would like the members of the center, that is our fellows, our members of the center that is in this house, to make comments about what is discussed, to make comments about what is presented. We want to know your opinion. We want to know your views. We want to have your contribution as to how we can all prevent ourselves from being crumbled by the impact of inflation, which we are all experiencing now. And I want to make mention of this now. Sometime in 2008, from statistics, it was revealed that the country Zimbabwe experienced the highest rate of inflation. It has never been recorded in history. That they had at that particular year, they have over 50 billion increase in the rate of inflation. That is annual total increase of inflation in that country. And what happens when a country that is that the government would like to take certain steps. Sometimes those steps will be very, very painful. That painful step, it may take the country a while to recuperate from that decision. So most of the time when inflation comes, countries, heads of state, races to quickly go and crash the price of their currency. They give away their currency in order to see if they can recuperate from the impact of inflation. That is all understood, that is all known. But the point of discussion this morning, the purpose and objective of this lecture is to improve our capacity at individual level to deal with inflation. Understand that is to improve our capacity as individuals to make informed decisions on how to hedge ourselves from the impact of inflation. I call on us, I yield the room to all of us to ask our questions so that Dr. Ebu can respond to this question. I am going to the chat room now to see questions that people had already put in the chat box. I also see Andy Uka raising up his hand. Andy Uka, do you want to ask a question, please? I would like Andy Uka to be unmuted so that he can, I think he wants to ask a question. Unmute Andy Uka so he can ask his questions.
I think he will have to unmute himself and talk.
Oh, all right. Okay. Mr. Andy Uka, please quietly go and unmute yourself and ask your question, please. Yes, Mr. Abiodun.
Nelson, can you unmute so that everyone will have the capacity to unmute himself?
Okay, yes, that is okay. Unmute everyone, and we pray we won't have distractions from the background.
Yeah, that is done.
Okay, Andy Oka, can you unmute yourself? Then while you are trying that, maybe let's see Adeni.
We have Dr. We also have Dr. Nwankwe Dimie. Dr. Nwankwe Dimie, you can also ask your question. Whoever that is ready.
Okay, good morning, Dr. Chris, and good morning, that group and all others around. Though I came in late because I was in another seminar where I was making a paper presentation. My question evolves around policies and inflation. If you take the trend in Nigerian economy, the major cause of inflation as of today is government policies. Government policies. Now, government policies, because the policies have strangulated a lot of organizations that we are not producing, that we are also not exporting. We import over 90% of what we consume. We export one product and get 90% imported. Government policies, because the companies or the organizations are being strangulated by the policies that are in place. Jobs are not created. Free fall of the naira. In this situation, where policies are strangulating organizations, we're not talking about let's leave the macro level, we're talking about the micro. Okay, let's say we're talking about the micro and the macro level. What input can we make to influence government policies? Because it's not enough to be productive. You can be productive, and then you are putting into practice, but at the end of the day, it seems like taking a cup of water, a spoon to fetch water to fill a drum. How can we go about influencing policies through our productivity to enhance national development and our organizations?
Thank you very much, Juan Podimie. Very, very, very important question. Dr. Chris Ebu, I hope you're there. Dr. Ebu, are you there?
Yes, please, I am here.
Okay, fine. I want to believe you understand how important this question is. So please, I would like you to respond to that question. It's very critical. It's very critical because I agree with Dr. Dimie. A lot seems to be going on the table of governance in Nigeria as it regards to drafting and delivering policies that is empowering to organizations. So that has been a very chronic challenge that we face as organizations.
Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you a lot.
Yes.
So I will answer on the context that you were not here when we started, because by the time we started, I made it clear that we were looking at this inflation from the micro level, what individuals can do to hedge themselves. But then their question tend to look at the microeconomics level, how we can influence. What we do about that is by training them to understand the tenets of productivity, so that when they are making input in policies, they will take policies that will affect inflation and government. Because when we talk about government, actually, it is not the political class that make the policies. The policies emanate from the public servants. They write the memos And when it is approved, it becomes policies. Given that presently we have some of our members in head office or head of service, some of our members in presidency, some of our members in academics, some in CBN. When I mean member, people that are in directorate level, and they are also making impact. Like in some series ago, I did mention that we have a director in office or head of service. And presently, in public service, federal government have changed the annual appraisal review to performance review evaluation, where people in government are reviewed based on their performance and not based on their years of service. And they're experimenting that, and with time, it will come to states too. So in so doing, we also have this year, we will engage some people in government by making courtesy visits. By doing that, we will also propagate policies, issues, and memos that can help in doing this. But you also agree with me that at times the impact on this inflation does not so much affect the ruling class, because the ruling class, 1% of the ruling class controls the 99% of the economy. Therefore, the inflationary trend favors them, which means that the way they will understand it may not be the way you understand it. Thank you.
Dr. Dimie, are you satisfied with that explanation? I believe we understand the response to this particular question. Dr. Dimie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I think what I needed to know is to drill this down to the individual level, because yes, the policy is there, people make the policies. How do we drill it down to the individual level? We are talking about individual productivity. Now, when you look at the national level, policies affect both organizations and then the individuals at the natural, at the micro level. Now, we have talked about how we as individuals can become productive to curb inflation. Now, how do we at this level, because everything that comes, all the policies drills down. It is supposed to be a two-way traffic. As it drills down, there should be the arrow also going up. What input can we make at the grassroots level to push this thing up so that it is implemented? It is not just policies. Of course, those are the top there, make the policies for themselves. And then when it comes down, those below suffers the impact of the policies. How do the people, or how will the people below who suffer the impact of this policy or policies or group of policies contribute to changing the narrative so that at the top, if it is better, it is also better at the bottom? This is what the first part is okay, and I wanted a clarification on this other part, if it's possible. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to respond. I will ask this question because apparently I have been in a field where I played an active role in policy analysis, awareness, and influence. And I would like to use my experience in that field to respond to your question. I think at the grassroots level, or what I may call at the sectoral level, like every influence or every request for change of policy it usually emanates because there was a factual proof of the negative impact of the existing policies on ground at a point in time. I was opportune to lead the technical committee some years ago of the Motorcycle Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. I was opportune to lead their technical team. And the core responsibility of this technical team then was to gather information as to how the policies of government is negatively affecting the way we run our businesses in our individual companies. And what I realized at that point, and what I believe should be the response to this, your question, is that the starting point is for there to be an awakening on the leaders of organizations across sectors on the existing policies. People leading organizations, business leaders, professionals need to have a depth of understanding of existing policies and how it directly impacts their organizations. When that is achieved, you are now forming a foundation on which you are going to base your request or your agitation for change or for amendment or for improvement of policies. Number one, as business leaders or as sectoral leaders, do we know, for instance, what our contribution stands at? What do we contribute to the economy at the present time? And then what is the actual capacity that we have? What's the actual potential of our sector in contributing to economic growth and development? The reason is, the moment you are able to know the existing policies, identify how it's impacting our existing businesses, we'll be able to say, hey, this is not how it's supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to be. There should always be a measurement of what is existing against what we want to exist when we are talking about policy. So at the grassroots level, the starting point is, for instance, we have members of Center for Public Service, Productivity and Development who also run businesses. We can decide at this level. Let us gather ourselves, define our sector and determine what the existing policy of government regarding that sector is. When we determine what it is and we determine how it's impacting our current business, we will be able to say that this is not right and this is what we need to do. But for us to be able to do that, we need a very interesting and robust data. Data means information in that sector. Data also means information on your organization. What is going on in your organization? Are you flourishing at the acceptable pace, or you are just crawling because of the a policy in place? So at the grassroots level, like we have mentioned, Doctor, it is important we have this knowledge. I call this building a knowledge empire in your sector. With that knowledge empire, you'll be able to stand your ground and tell the government that this is what we are expecting. For instance, in my own sector, last year to be precise, in 2021 to be precise, the government brought down the imports levy on fairly used motor vehicles. This was not what is expected of them at that point in time, despite the projection that they gave and of course their reasons. It is not what is expected, and we know quite all right that when you encourage importation of fairly used vehicles, yes, it is going to help people to be able to afford cars. But the important thing is that you should be able to address the issue of unemployment and of course the issue of purchasing power of your citizens. First and foremost, it is not just making car affordable by encouraging fairly used vehicles into Nigeria, because the bottom line is that somebody that doesn't have money in the pocket in the first instance, even if you import fairly used vehicles, the person may still at a point in time not be able to afford those vehicles. So our debate then was that the government should first and foremost try to industrialize the economy. It should try to encourage local manufacturers. If local manufacturers are able to bring in components, the one that they can bring in and be able to fulfill the 18% local content, it then means that a lot of jobs are going to be created for Nigerians, Nigerians are going to have jobs, they are going to have money. It also means that at a point in time, this organization may even have financing, programs that will allow individuals to be able to, buy new automobiles without having to rely on. So if you encourage import of fairly used vehicles into the country, what you are saying is that the indigenous manufacturers or assemblers of these products are not supposed to be optimizing their operations, because of course there is no way you will be able to face the cost of assembly or cost of manufacture or partial manufacturing of these automobiles in Nigeria market and be able to compete favorably. So the number one thing is get to know what is happening in your sector, build an empire of knowledge around your sector, and use that to be a base for you to decide that you are going to meet government. And when you want to meet the government, the thing is this, government will not listen to you if you are not able to provide a very, very, damning information on what you are talking about. So let us start from that point. Understand the existing policies, how it impacts your business at the current time, and then what it needs to be for future progress and progression of your organization. This is what we can do. And I believe that the doctor that asked this question, if you are a member of this CeProd, I think we are going to be talking and having advanced conversation in that direction so that we know what we can do to address it on the ground.
Thank you very much.
So we have Adeni Fatoko. Adeni Fatoko, you raised your hand. Please, can we have your question? Is Adeni Fatoko still in the house? I yield the floor to you to ask your question.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Clearly.
Yeah, I observed something as regard the issue of inflation, the individual productivity. Yeah, I just wanted to realize one thing about productivity is that the individualistic productivity has a lot to do with the public productivity. If government did not create an enabling environment for people to prosper in their financial commitment, it will be very difficult for them to succeed in the volatile economy. For example, now, every part of the world, most developed country and developing country, have been moving into the digital world, in which most African countries are still crawling. This is a real challenge. Let's consider the menace in Nigeria now, which is insecurity menace. And then, according to an expert, an housing expert, they said that the basic parameter of an healthy housing is safety indicator. Unsafe environment is not healthy for living, and then it's not healthy for any industrialized or commercial activities. Our government need to fight insecurity. Our government need to work to fight economic prosperity. Our government need to formulate a policy, implement a policy, and enforce a policy that will translate in welfare of the people, that will translate in individual socio-economic status. The problem of the African Nigeria is not, it has nothing to do with their initiative. We have many educators in Nigeria. We have many intelligent and brilliant Nigerians, but our government kill them with their nonchalant attitude, with their failure in responsibility. The basic quality of a leadership is responsibility and responsiveness. Nigerian leaders are not responsive, are not responsible in their daily commitment. Therefore, this thing is affecting the African Nigerians on their daily conduct. And then when you see the word, in terms of the word, in terms of, we call something maybe conduct disorder. you can see that a lot of Nigeria are prone to conduct disorder now because of what? Of poverty. Inflation, you can't succeed it because government does not have any plan. They don't project ahead the time. That's the problem. Our government fail us. They fail us because of their greediness, selfishness, and irresponsibility. Every sector of economics is not performing, both real sector and financial sector. You can see, my sister, look at what is happening in every part of the world. An African Nigerian now is turning to a beggar. Where's government? Where is public sectors? Even though their poor performance is affecting small businesses and a lot of you see. Let us really beyond this. We need maybe to organize a program, a conference. Maybe I don't understand how the institution will make it. Yes, I'm saying they need to organize a workshop. Yes, to address a public sector on how they can make a lot better for African Nigeria. We don't need their money. We don't expect them to be sharing money to people. Let them be responsible in their in their responsibility. Let them be responsible in their daily conduct. Let people see again their impact in their daily activities. That is what I emphasize. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fatoku. Your question is double-edged. It's a question and also a very, very valid observation. Thank you very much. I think I would allow Dr. Egu to respond. I will also have a response to give. I mean, to collaborate what you have said. I need to collaborate it because you made mention of a very particular area of government performance that is very my company have been a very we have been victims of that situation in the public service, and I would like to respond to that. But first and foremost, I yield the floor to you, Dr. Ebu. Please respond to his observations and concerns.
Okay. Quickly, I want to mention that most of us have children, and we try to make sure they eat every day. And we don't use the narrative that there's no food today because government policy does not allow me to get money. Government policy, insecurity, there are more or less externalities that you do not have control over. So when we are talking about productivity, productivity is all about input and output. What can you do as an individual? How can you increase your return on investment? How can you increase your return on energy? We have return on investment, we have return on energy. If a particular environment is not fertile or favorable, you can move to another environment. In primary economics, we did about location of industry, location of business. We also did about occupational mobility. If you ask government, they will say they are doing their best. Therefore, if you now use it as a basis not to eat, not to give your children food, then you may understand that government is the cause, but your children may not be able to understand. And then you will spend a lot of energy discussing issues about government. Same energy you can spend on doing one or two things to improve your income. Like I said from beginning, CeProd is not a government agency. CeProd is like a professional body looking at how members can enhance their capacity, their productivity within the best environment and within the existing environment. So you are looking at your own strengths and weaknesses. You are not looking at externalities, which is not within your control. On this regard, I would like Kele Ebel, who is a council member, to also make an input.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Dr. Chris for this fine lecture. At the outset of the lecture, he said he wants to dwell on the microeconomic level or management of inflation. If we are to spend all the time talking about government policies, how it could be changed, we may not get anywhere. That may be left to the politicians as they are jostling around, and maybe we ourselves engage in politics. But what we have dwelt on in this lecture is how to manage on an individual level the inflation in the environment where we live. If you spend all the time discussing how the weather is windy, how it's cold and all that, that may be less helpful to your family. But if you discuss how to build a very solid house for your family with heaters, that is understandable. So we have actually spoken about microeconomic management of inflation. And I think the doctor did a very good job. He mentioned some areas like not keeping money idle, buying foodstuff when it's less costly, buying land, saving in dollars or pounds, buying crypto, cars, borrowing more, multiple sources of income, buying rights, and diversifying into international investment environment. Let all of us, if you look at the chart, most of the questions are directed on these areas. Some are asking how they can learn how to invest in crypto, whether the center can do something about it. Some asked how to keep money in a safe bank and in an instrument yielding good income. So I think those are the issues that we should contain ourselves for now. I must also mention that some of these 10 areas for hedging against inflation, we need to be very careful on individual level so as not to lose the little money or the resources at our disposal. For example, buying land, you need to check the title of the land so that you don't buy litigations. For example, buying cars, we need to check whether it's stolen cars, whether it could be preserved within a duration before disposal. And on the international investment area, we need to study how we can do this. I think once we're able to do that, we are good to go on a micro level. Then the issues of government policies on a macro level could be left for other climes and other time to discuss. So once again, I thank the participants, I thank the lecturer and also the chairman who have been anchoring this. Thank you very much, all of you.
Well, thank you very much, our able council member. That was a very concise response and also directional. We understand that the idea now, the focus now is on management of the repercussions of inflation at the individual level, at micro level. That's fine. And I do believe that the House members also have come to understand that. I would like Dr. Bolutife Oluwadale, who is a special guest to this event. I invited him. Oluwadale is coming from all the way from Canada. He's also a potential fellow of this center. So I would like him to make a comment or drop his opinion on the subject of discussion. Dr. Bolutife, are you there?
Well, thank you. I am here. Thank you for having me. I've listened to the presentation and all the questions. And thank you for making the clarification too, because I would have loved so much to talk about fundamentals, because there are so many fundamentals, but those fundamentals are obviously beyond the micro level, as it were. But they have their direct impact on the micro level. I wonder if we can actually discuss this issue and very well, and still overlook those fundamentals. Because as it is now, Nigeria, we know our productivity level is very low. And there are basic issues that are needed to be addressed, which eventually we affect the micro level. In my recent publication, which I call My Quest for Nigeria Rebirth, which is a new book that just came out. I tried to address some of the issues. For instance, the issue of electricity, the high cost of production, and the low productivity itself at the macro level is affecting the micro level. And there's also an assumption here that everybody has a certain level of disposable income. The question remains that people who are barely living by, as good as all these 10 points are, they may not be able to operate within them. For instance, somebody that is not able to meet his regular expenses, where does he get money to keep aside? Those are the fundamental questions we need to ask. People whose salary are delayed and they borrowed money to feed their family before the end of the month, how do they keep money aside? People who live on salary advance. I'm an accountant. I'll be a payroll accountant for a number of years. And I know this. I know some level of staff, even when it was not this bad, who will always come for salary advance every month. I had to take a, counsel to them. I've also taught people extensively on personal finance management. I know some of these things, they are good, but at so many individual levels, they are they can become very, very unrealistic, because there is an assumption that is made here that everybody has almost sufficient level of disposable income. So they begin to, so they can now, for number one, keep money aside, keep money idle. Of course, people collect their salary when they receive their alert. Within 48 hours, the money is completely withdrawn. So how does such person, and even they are still in, even of that. Of course, then number 2 and number 9 rather, there are something here that can become, to my mind, very counterproductive. Because the other side of the coin is that these two issues might encourage hoarding. And when individuals begin to hoard, those who have the means begin to hoard foodstuff in the season when the food is out. What happened to those who are merely getting by? Of course, the price will increase, and those who are barely surviving, they will be negatively impacted, unless we are now no longer going to be our brother's keeper. I know economists and sentiment may not always go together. I mean, economy is not sentimental at all. We are talking about national, issue here. So that is another issue. I mean, you buy foodstuff and you keep them so that you sell them when it is the price goes up. How does that impact those who are living below the poverty level? Or are we no longer concerned about those ones? That's another issue that I think we ought to look at. Then another issue I would have loved to see is like, even there is also still a challenge here. How much storage capacity? I know of Nigeria, there are a lot of storage deficiency. This food that you buy, that you keep, can spoil because it is not well kept, or it can even be stolen. People can bubble into it if they know you are keeping food and steal it. So how do you guide against this? So there are other challenges facing this that we can also not overlook. They advise themselves. I'm not saying they're bad, they are good. But what I'm trying to do is to look, okay, let's look at the other side. Let's look at the other mean. It's not everybody that can afford a car, let alone selling a car. And of course, there are people that are also the behavioral pattern. There are many people when they acquire assets, with their kingdom come. So the advice are good. Crypto is not the guarantee of sometimes you don't, depends on your risk appetite. If you dabble into crypto, you may burn your fingers. Yes, it will appreciate, but there's also something that people are not understanding. There is still a fundamental, which I tell people about crypto. Crypto is like, it's like a rebellion against government. Those who started the idea of crypto, they are trying to break government monopoly, government influence on money. And many governments are trying to fight that back. The truth is that at the end of the day, nobody knows who is going to win. The thing that is driving crypto today is because a lot of technology are going to crypto, and that is driving it. But if you look at even the regular stock exchange now, you will see that the price of this technology firm is going down. So we don't know who is going to win the war, the business or the government. If government has a way of regulating crypto, at the end of the day, this upside scale of crypto might actually come down. You can lose your investment. I'm not an apostle of doom. I'm just saying we should be mindful of all this. These are the fundamentals. Crypto as it is now is sitting on the edge. The money people are trying to compete. The government is trying to devise strategy to fight back. So that's another thing I want to draw your attention to. But there's something that Dr. Ebu said that drew my attention. When you were reading his insight, you mentioned that about being a productivity auditor, and that triggered my interest. And despite the fact that you have said that you are talking at micro level, I want to chip in this question because I'm aware, though I don't live in Nigeria, I'm almost like in Nigeria every day, not in the body. So let's take those regulatory agencies that are supposed to be catalysts for personal entrepreneurship. How are they performing? For instance, let me take the issue of NAFDAC as a case study. I know especially so many young ladies who are dabbling into entrepreneurship, who are trying to register their product for export for everything. These are things that I believe that a process that should be completed like within maximally 45 to 90 days. But from what feedback I've gotten from people, sometimes it takes 2-3 years to complete this process. And if an agency that is set up to be a catalyst is deliberating, frustrating the people. And how does productivity audit come into this place? How can your organization, yes, it's a non-government organization, how can you intervene? Or, I mean, you can find out whether what I'm saying, whether it is true or it's not true. How can you intervene that, okay, because at the end of the day, if this thing is allowed to continue, whereby people who genuinely stick out their neck to be entrepreneurs are frustrated by government agencies who are supposed to regulate them, how do they prosper? How do we increase employment? How do we, the value addition, the multiplier effect of a household being able to export what they are producing outside. For instance, in most countries like UK, like Canada, like US, where we have a large population of not only Nigeria, of African. I know a lot of Kenyans here who want to taste Nigerian food. Then you see a small entrepreneur who wants to be packaging this food and be sending it, and the law says they must register with NAFDAC. And 3 years, they are on it. Some get frustrated, spend money, and NAFDAC insisting that they should go through their own consultants who are making out these people, getting them frustrated. How do we increase productivity in such situation? I know I've crossed the line of micro, but then this also can be found within micro because these are individuals who are trying to enhance the GDP of the nation. But the government agency that are responsible, I hope that anybody from NAFDAC is on this call, that are responsible for encouraging them, are actually frustrating them. How can we overlook all this? Of course, we cannot, let's not go into policy implications of productivity, which I jotted down before. But since we are asked to limit our discussion to micro level, I would not want to go into that. So what is your organization going to do about either advocating or influencing productivity, especially within the regulatory agencies? Because these directly impact individuals. I don't want to take a lot of, the other doctor talk about, okay, when you are buying land, you have to be careful, buyers beware. You are buying, $7 or in pounds, again, has its own, when it creates scarcity in Nigeria, because people are domiciling their saving in dollars and pounds, the exchange rate goes up. The legitimate business cost of production will rise. Of assessing has gone up. Again, it comes back to the individuals because a producer will want to recover his money, recover his costs, and the inflation, the high cost of production that the individual manufacturer has is transferred to the consumer. Again, one thing that I was finding missing here, which I want to add in your points, like, yes, as individual level, you also seek for alternatives, especially in the area of consumption. So if drinking tea is becoming too difficult, you can switch to pap. Or if custard, you cannot afford custard, make your own pap. I think that is another issue whereby also you can, have more disposable income to invest or to borrow. Then to borrow more and lend less is a two-edged sword. It can also be counterproductive. Let me not take over all the conversation. Thank you for having me.
Wow, Dr. Bolutife, I know you are going to bring all these critical matters to the fore. Dr. Chris Ebu, I would like you to respond to Dr. Bolutife's observations and highlights of what we need to be concerned about. Those of us that have benefited from this lecture series, Bolutife's observations has just been able to balance our appreciation of what we need to do as a beneficiaries of this lecture series. I would like Dr. Ebu to respond to it. What this observation has brought to my mind is that there is no recommendations that is given to each and every one of us that reflects that we should just go ahead and start implementation without having to critically think about the both sides of that point. And I love the fact that our council member initially had also mentioned that there are certain precautions that we have to take at individual level when it comes to implementation of these 10 points that has been given to us this afternoon. I would like Dr. Ebu to respond to these key observations, and then we'll move ahead. We have a couple more questions, and then we will be rounding up. We just have 20-something minutes left for this lecture series. So, Dr. Ebu, I yield the floor to you.
Yes, thanks a lot, Dr. Bolu. You started well. Every discussion have two sides. There are always pros and cons. And towards the end, I did mention that my lecture was 35 minutes. And that is not sufficient to double into all the areas in depth. Yeah, you mentioned about disadvantaged low-income earners who may not even be able to have savings. My discussions did not cover how we can help them. So my discussion centered on how we can be more productive. And in definition of productivity, we say you must have an input which you want to grow to have a greater output. Therefore, it means that if you don't have an input, you don't have 1 kobo. Possibly, you must sell your labor in order to have an input. And if you don't have savings, you cannot have investment. Therefore, those ones will fall under the social economy, which maybe government policies will cater. But then the middle class and the upper class are those who have income and they can have savings and they can start being productive. And we have series of lectures. This is about 11 or 12 of those lectures. We have lectures on how you can work smarter. We have had in the past. We have lectures on how you can be more productive with your time, how you can manage time. We have had in the past. We have lectures on how you can enhance your cash flow. We have lectures that are borders on personal finance. So, but this was specific. So you also mentioned about people having challenges with government agencies, not only NAFDAC. Any government agency you want to deal with, you will have some challenges, bottlenecks, man-made. And that is why people belong to associations like this, such that if you have a challenge, we can look at our database, someone that is connected, and we can also take it up. I'll give you an instance. There is someone who retired about 2 years ago. She has been battling to get her pension, and she's under the contributory pension scheme, which ordinarily will not have an issue. But she had an issue dealing with her name being different from what is registered. And she came to us. We helped her draft a letter. And when she wanted to submit it, they refused to receive the letter. So I have to call the desk officer and say, please help to solve this issue that I'm speaking from so body. And now she knows that that woman, though unlearned, though low class, that someone from upper level is intervening and they are now willing to assist. So when you have a problem as an individual, if you belong to an association or a group and you complain, the association or group can intervene and it will change the dynamics, because by the time they know that an association, reputable association who is connected is intervening, they will now sit up and do the right thing. So really, if we want to discuss about government and the impediments to this thing, like I mentioned earlier, we want to take it at another level. We will go to them, the council members, some selected fellow members, we go to the government. And when we are there with them, we will discuss these issues with them and we will take it up from them. Because one, discussing on the bar or his room about what is happening in Aso Rock will not be aware. Or what is happening in Ministry of Education will not be aware. You need to go to them. We need to write them, to seek their audience and sit face to face with them, and we'll discuss some of these issues that affect them on such a platform. And by so doing, we'll be making an impact. And that is why also we want people like Dr. Bolu to be on board, so that at that level also, they can make critical inputs. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much,
Welcome,
Dr.
sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ebu. That was very good. And you brought comfort back to my mind when you mentioned that at the association level, at organization level like this, we can actually have an intervention, interventive steps taken when people approaches us with their peculiar challenges. That is very heartwarming, because what I wanted to add to that comment that, that question that Dr. Bolu asked, what we should be doing in the future to assist people to be able to access the services, public services for their organizational progress or prosperity. Yes, the thing is, we may even be proactive and decide to conduct certain surveys to determine how efficient certain public service offices or agencies are. We can take that initiative by ourselves, like not saying, okay, we are going to just wait until we receive a request from a member. We can decide, if it will not take much on us, we can decide to conduct surveys to determine if there is need for us to take steps. And of course, steps will always begin with an initiative, an initiation letter or a familiarization letter, letting those agencies know what our concerns are, and of course, making necessary recommendations. That's one of the ways we could take actions that could be more transformational and beneficial to members of the public who are not even members of the center. So thank you very much, Doctor. You have made mention of that critical item that I was looking forward to. So on that note, let me just also say this. Center for Public Service, Productivity and Development is one of the centers that has been very, very active in changing public perceptions and growing public knowledge on the relevance and impact of productivity on our organization and individual lives. I would like everyone here in the room who are potential members, so join us. The more we have members that are coming from different backgrounds, the more our capacity has increased, or the more we have increased capacity to attempt to do something about all these crippling challenges in our system. So we invite you people to join us. If you are eligible, go to our website. You'll be able to see what is the eligibility criteria. Join us to get make the necessary impact in our community. I have one more question coming forward from Adigun Muyudin. Are you still there, Mr. Adigun Muyudin? I also have Oluwayowa Onyola, to ask your questions after rounding up.
Dr. Olumayowa speaking, please.
Okay, Dr. Olumayowa, we can hear you clearly.
I have been able to join you from the beginning. I am a potential member, and by God's grace, I believe I'll be able to join soonest. Okay. I want to say that all we've been taught today they are very, very useful at a personal level, but they all depend on each person. It's not actually that there are no pros and no cons. For anything, any action, any situation, any decision, everything has pros and cons. The steps we've been taking in order to protect ourselves during inflation or from inflation, they all depend on us as individuals. My husband has a sister who never went to school. She started from tailoring. From tailoring, she started from just sewing clothes. She started going to the federal government colleges. She started knitting these cardigans. She was going to and then sewing the sportswear, and she was taking them to federal government colleges, even in the northern states. She was going to as many federal government colleges with her proposal and everything. This woman never went to school. Later, this woman decided that her husband went into university and went along teaching education side. She was telling the husband that the husband should try and build a school. The husband was like, where will the money come from? Where will this one come from? The woman said, we can start from the bungalow we have at the back of our house. You know, from our personal effort, they started building small. They completed the bungalow. From there, they were living there. They moved from that bungalow to a bigger house. And the wife suggested that they should use that one and start the primary school. This woman on her own, when the husband was slow in responding, she printed leaflets and went around all the streets around them, telling them that they are starting school, they are starting primary school. The name of the school is Tofas. From here, they progress to having a very big secondary school. Tofas is well known in Akure, in Ondo State. What am I saying? It all depends on individuals. Everything they have taught us, we work for you, whether you are poor or whether you are rich. We've seen rich people becoming poorer, and we've seen poor people becoming richer. You know, diversification, having multiple sources of income, we know it pays. Even Dangote is not producing only one product. We know what made him to become the wealthiest man in Africa. He has so many products. I was learning from all these things. Let's put all these things into practice. There will always be cons, or what will I say, negative factors against any good thing. So, but please, we have to be positive. Nigeria is really positive. The situation of Nigeria was so discouraging to me at one time that I felt there's nothing I can do again to help myself. I was just accepting my situation, accepting that this one cannot be done. And so that's all. But it came to me at one time that what if you try and put a little effort, just try until there is no more opportunity or possibility of you trying. I was raising up kids. I'm in the medical line. I'm a medical doctor. I'm working in two places. I'm a lecturer and I'm also a consultant. I'm working in the hospital. And then I had children. I was raising children. I didn't find it funny without anybody. So it was as if there was a time I was not productive. I was not moving forward. Until it came to me that try. In drops of water make an ocean. I spoke to myself and I started putting on all the productivity lectures or knowledge that I had into practice. I tried ways of cooking food that will make it faster, I bought practically every gadget. I bought the washing machine, in order to make myself productive, to move forward. And I thank God I started moving forward. So all these things we've been taught, there are pros and there are cons, but we should all, as you said earlier, that it all depends on us applying these things. Is actually application that will make us productive. We should gain the knowledge of facts As I used to tell my students, I train medical students too. I train doctors that are specializing in skin diseases residents. You know, I tell them, you have to like get knowledge. Knowledge are facts. You can't change it. That is something is black, white. But when you apply that knowledge, that's when you become wise, and that's when you gain. So we need to practice these things that are telling.
Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Omibe.
All right, thank you very much, Doctor. What a wonderful motivating submission. I love that because I'm also a very strong champion of a positive thinking. The bottom line is this. What I even believe in is that until you try it, you wouldn't know whether it's working or it's not working. So we are still going to go ahead and ensure that we practicalize what we have garnered this morning. Thank you very much, Dr. Niniola. I would like to call on Kelechi Abel. I don't know if you are still there, Mr. Kelechi Abel. Okay, Daniel Thomas, you are still raising your hand. Can we hear your question or your submission? I yield the floor to you.
Okay, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Very clear.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I'm also a prospective member. I've been I've been shifting it, but this time around I will nail it by the grace of God. So this is a very good one. Thank you, Dr. Ebu. Thank you, Madam Maureen, and for all that have contributed today. But I want to just say a thing. I don't want to overflog or repeat the things that many people have said. I just want to say that the macro level of productivity is also dependent on the macro. They are inseparable. They are inseparable. You know, in as far as I respect highly the opinions of Dr. Ebu, you know, looking at how to hedge inflation on the micro level. I've been here since the beginning. I also want to chip in that they are interdependent. What affects the micro, what affects the macro will definitely affect the micro. You know, we've been told not to go into the government areas, but I believe that most Nigerians are not productive because of possibly effects of the failures of government-related activities. You know, I just want to stop at that, you know, because again, looking at what can you do personally? Yes, there are a lot of things that have been said that could be done personally. Dr. Ebu was mentioning some of the things they've done in the past, some lectures which I've been part of as well, time management and all that. That works, but to a large extent, it's also the level at which it works is also dependent on the governance and leadership, you know, at different levels. And we shouldn't lose focus of that. It's very heartwarming to hear that, yes, we can engage government in CeProd, and that is one aroused interest that I have, if we could just move in that direction, because we can't discuss things that affect our personal productivity without talking about how government activities influence infrastructure decay. I had a case recently, and I went to a particular government agency. I don't want to mention the name. It's a security outfit. I got a shock of my life. You know, some people tend to dupe me, you know, trying to make investment, like Dr. Ebu was saying, in millions, in 2 digits of millions, for that matter. And They told me to go and bring 500,000 to mobilize them. You know, come on. You know, some of the things we hear in Nigeria, we shouldn't, you know, particularize these global principles and without looking at them as a Nigerian thing. That is a challenge. Most of the time, that global concepts. I like the way the man that spoke from Canada did speak. Okay, so because these are global concepts, you know, we shouldn't just look at them from a Nigerian perspective. It works everywhere if we follow those global concepts. It's true we need to think international or global and, of course, perform locally. But these global principles will also work in Nigeria. What are they? Let there be infrastructure. Let there be electricity. I can assure you, if Nigerians have electricity, maybe 20 hours, why not 24 hours? Most individual Nigerians will be super, super, super productive at the micro level. You know, so why am I saying all this? We can hardly separate individual or micro productivity spectrum from influences of government. That is my take. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel Thomas. Beyond being a member or a potential member of our center, I may have to call you also to another forum, because what you have just highlighted or exposed is the need for contextualization, of what I will call contextual learning. The point is, we agree our discussion this morning is just about the micro economic challenges of inflation. But the thing is that, just as you have rightly said, the separation of the two in the Nigerian context will be to the detriment of each and every one of us that want to make use of these principles that has been highlighted, of these guides that has been highlighted. So yes, it is in order, because we cannot learn outside the context of our environment. When we want to effectively learn and empower such learning to also transform us and our environment, contextualization and contextual learning has to be brought to fore. And I completely agree with you. But the point that Dr. Ebu was trying to make initially was that, for the purpose of time and probably the focus of this lecture this morning, we are just going to be embedding our conversations and the lectures on the micro aspect of this topic. But that is not to say we are not going to come back. We are going to come back as it has been observed. The two is intertwined. And if we are very silent on the macro level or the macro aspects of the challenges of inflation, we may not achieve, let me say 60% of what we initially would have achieved should we have taken the two into context. Of course, we are going to have further discussions, if not a lecture series, maybe an informal conversation or a dialogue on this particular subject. So thank you very much for that input. It's going to help us to make decisions in the future concerning this topic. So thank you very much. Kelechi Abel, you have 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes to ask your questions, and we are rounding up in the next 3 minutes. 2 minutes, you ask your question, we respond, then we will round up. I once again thank all the fellows of the center, all the members of the center, and of course, our guests in this special lecture series, themed Prosperity Through Productivity. It has been a wonderful time. And I want to just let us know that this is just one of the things that the center does to make sure that we are creating values and delivering it where it is necessary in productivity and promotion of productivity in the Nigerian economy.
Thank you very much. It's not much of a question, but a comment. I want to commend all the attendees and encourage those who are thinking about becoming members of CeProd to do so as quickly as possible. There's strength in numbers.
Yes.
Like this, the center has a committee on intergovernmental affairs The committee's duty is to liaise with policymakers in governments to change some of these negative narratives about policies that affect individuals negatively. We have a committee that is saddled with that responsibility. So, but like Bible proverb says, he who watches the wind will not sow seed. The wind is the macro. The sowing of the seed is the micro. So if we keep on looking at the wind and complaining about infrastructure, lack of this, lack of that, we will not sow seed. We will not manage things personally on individual level. But on the macro level, let us rest assured that the institute highest level of policymakers to right some of the wrongs. Once more, I thank the lecturer and all the participants. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kelechi. I would like our DG to make a comment and of course nominate someone to give a closing remark.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So I appreciate all that have attended. We will continue to rub ideas, exchange ideas on how to better ourselves as individuals and society in general. So on this note, I would like a member of the Governing Council, Dr. Joshua Odewale, to give the final closing remark. Dr. Joshua Odewale.
Dr. Joshua, we yield the floor to you.
You have not unmuted yourself. Okay.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, clearly.
Yes, on behalf of the Center for Productivity, I would like to express our appreciation to everyone who has indicated their presence because some have already left, and to the chairman and the various participants, as well as those who have raised various issues. We really appreciate your presence. We really appreciate your contribution. And one thing we just want to say is that those who are potential members or who want to be members but didn't know, I've already sent a text that you should please send your name, your phone number, and email to the name that is indicated, to the number indicated 0803 703 3231. 0803 703 3231, and title it Potential Membership. I'm speaking on behalf of the membership committee so that you'll be able to get in touch with you. Thank you very much, DG, that's Dr. Igbu, and all that have contributed in one way or the other. May God bless us all in Jesus' name. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you very much, Dr. Joshua. It has been wonderful listening to you. Thank you, all of you that are behind the scene, making the center very value-based and optimizing our value deliveries to members of the Nigerian society. We appreciate you all especially. I will not forget to mention the admin head, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson, thank you very much for the wonderful work you're doing. I don't know if you're here, but I want to commend your professionalism and then your support in our administrative office. Thank you all.
It's a pleasure, ma. Thank you, ma.
All right, who have made this session a very, very productive one. We'll keep doing what we know how to do best, and then we'll keep adding values. We just call on you to join us, and then we'll do it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you.